Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack sources and find those real nuggets of insight.
That's the plan.
And today, we're tackling something I think a lot of us wonder about. What really stands between us and, those huge goals we
The
have.
really ambitious ones, yeah.
Exactly. And we've got this fantastic TEDx talk. It's from Stephen Duneier. And honestly, it might just flip your whole perspective on ambition and getting things done.
It's definitely thought-provoking.
Okay, so let's get into it. Stephen kicks things off with a question that sounds kind of weird at first. He asks, how many people think they could draw a really complex picture of Brad Pitt? Just pencil and paper.
And most people immediately think, no way.
Right.
Impossible.
Totally. But then he asks, okay, what about just drawing a solid gray square?
And everyone's hand goes up for that one. Easy.
Yeah, right. And here's where it gets really interesting. He connects that simple idea, that one gray square, to how actual high-level art gets made.
It's fascinating, isn't it? His point is, if you can make one gray square, well, you can make two or three.
Or eventually, all the little gray squares you need for that Brad Pitt image.
Mm-hmm.
It suddenly seems less impossible.
Exactly. And then he brings up Chuck Close, the artist. Hugely successful, earns millions.
Oh, yeah, his portraits are incredible, massive, super realistic.
And guess what? Chuck Close uses basically this exact method, a grid system, breaking the huge portrait down into tiny, manageable squares.
Wow. So it's not just like a neat little thought experiment.
Not at all. It's a real technique used by one of the top artists out there, and it perfectly illustrates Stephen's main point. It's a powerful metaphor for achievement.
Which is?
Well, it really gets to the core insight from the source material here. Achieving even the really, really big dreams, it has way less to do with having some kind of magical skill or, innate talent than we think.
Okay, so it's not about being gifted.
Not primarily, no. It's much more about how we approach problems, how we make decisions, the process we use to solve things.
Right. And because we face, millions of decisions every day, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Even a small, marginal improvement in how we make those decisions.
A tiny shift in the process.
Yeah, it can have this huge compounding impact on the final result.
It's not just theory either. Think about Novak Djokovic, the tennis player.
Oh, right. Legend.
So back in 2004, he turns pro, ranked 680th in the world. Not exactly setting the world on fire yet.
Okay.
But by the end of his third year, he's number 3. Making $5 million a year just in prize money.
Whoa, that's a serious jump.
And then, by 2011, he hits number 1, averaging $14 million a year, winning 90% of his matches. Just dominant.
Incredible stats. But here's the kicker, right? The part that connects back. Novak doesn't, directly control being number 1 or earning $14 million.
Exactly. Those are outcomes. What he does control are all the tiny little decisions he makes along the way. Every point, every shot choice. He's just trying to shift the probability, even slightly, in his favor.
So how much did he actually need to improve those decisions?
Well, we can kind of quantify it by looking at his decision success rate. Basically, what percentage of points does he win?
Okay.
So when he was ranked way down at 680th, winning about 49% of his matches, guess what? He was winning about 49% of the points he played. It tracks pretty closely.
Makes sense.
Now, to jump all the way to number 3 in the world, he only needed to get that point-winning percentage up to 52%.
Only 52 from 49. That doesn't sound like that much.
Right. And to become number 1, arguably one of the greatest ever, just 55%.
So see 5%. Wow.
Now, when Stephen says just, he's quick to point out it's not easy, obviously. It takes immense work.
Sure, at that level.
But the type of improvement, those marginal gains, those small adjustments, he argues they're actually achievable for basically any of us in our own lives.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how does it play out for someone who isn't, a world-class athlete? What does it mean for you listening right now?
Well, Stephen shares his own story, which is pretty relatable, actually.
Yeah, he says he was basically a C, maybe C- student, consistently from kindergarten all the way through college.
Always being told the same thing. You need to settle down. You need to focus.
Sound familiar? Yeah. And he wanted to focus. He really did, but he just couldn't. Not for long periods.
Until his junior year of college, he decides, okay, I need to be an active participant here. I need to take control of my own decision-making.
And his big adjustment, his marginal gain, was kind of brilliant because it was honest.
Yeah, what was it?
He basically just accepted that he probably couldn't focus for more than, say, 5 or 10 minutes straight. Instead of fighting it, he worked with it.
Ah, okay. So he leaned into the limitation.
Exactly. So let's say he had to read 5 chapters for a class. Instead of trying to power through for hours,
Which wasn't working.
right, he'd break it down into these super tiny tasks, like maybe read just 3 or 4 paragraphs. That's it.
Just for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Then he'd stop,
Yeah.
get up, shoot some hoops, maybe draw something, play a video game, whatever, take a real break,
And then come back.
then come back for another 5 to 10 minute chunk. And get this, it didn't even have to be the same subject. He might switch to a different assignment entirely.
That sounds almost too easy. Or maybe too fragmented.
You'd think so. But this seemingly small shift, just working with his short attention span,
Yeah.
it produced massive results.
Okay.
He became a straight-A student, made the dean's list, the president's honor roll, all the way through graduation.
Wow.
And it carried on. He got into top graduate programs in finance and economics and aced those two.
So that simple adjustment completely changed his academic trajectory.
Completely. And
Yeah.
then he took that same core approach into his career, which
Oh.
was pretty high-pressure stuff.
Like what kind of roles?
Started as an exotic derivatives trader for Credit Suisse.
Oh, okay. That sounds complex.
Right. Then became global head of currency option trading for Bank of America. Global head of emerging markets for AIG International.
These are huge high-stakes jobs.
Massive.
Mm.
And later founded 2 award-winning hedge funds. And he says the approach was always the same underneath.
Break down the complexity.
Yep. Break down complex ideas or situations, figure out where you can make small, marginal improvements in how you approach them.
And just increase your odds of success bit by bit.
Exactly. But then he had this realization, right?
Yeah, he realized he was doing this for work, for school.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really applying this powerful method to his own, like, personal dreams. Those big, ambitious goals we all have.
The someday goals.
Precisely. Which makes you think, doesn't it? What about your personal goals? The ones you maybe keep putting off?
So what did he do?
Well, he started applying it. He had this 45-minute commute driving through Hyde Park in London every day.
Adds up.
It added up to 360 hours a year, and he felt like he was just wasting it, listening to music.
We've all been there.
So his marginal adjustment, he bought the Pimsleur German language program. It's like an audio course.
Okay.
Put it on his iPod, but then, and this is key, he deleted all his music off the iPod.
Remove the temptation. Smart.
Totally removed the easy alternative. So for 10 months on his commute, he just listened to German lessons, went through all 99 CDs, 3 times each.
Wow, that's commitment even in small chunks.
It is. And then he went to Berlin, just started talking to people in German. And apparently, his kids were just floored. Like, Dad, how did you learn German?
And his reaction.
His big realization was kind of funny. He thought, wait a second, it's not supposed to be this easy for a guy like me, an older guy, to learn a whole new language.
But the process made it achievable.
That one marginal adjustment, using the commute time, removing the music, made it happen.
And that just opened the floodgates, didn't it?
Yeah.
He started tackling all sorts of other big goals he'd shelved.
Yeah, like getting an auto racing license, learning to fly helicopters and aerobatic planes,
Whoa.
rock climbing, skydiving, all these things he'd probably thought were out of reach before.
It really shows how adjusting the approach unlocks potential.
Definitely. Let's look at another one, fitness. In 2007, he said he was about 25 pounds overweight. Now, instead of the usual stuff like joining a gym he might not go to or starting some super restrictive diet.
Things most of us try and fail at.
Right. He leveraged what he already did and liked. He was already walking about an hour and a half every day, just generally, and he loved being outdoors.
So connect the dots.
His New Year's resolution wasn't lose 25 pounds. That's an outcome hard to control directly.
Right, like Djokovic's ranking.
Exactly. His resolution was hike all 33 trails in the front country of the Santa Barbara Mountains, something specific, actionable that he'd never done.
That still sounds like a pretty big goal, 33 trails.
It does, but here's the marginal gains thinking again. He stresses that it wasn't really about the 33 trails. It wasn't even about completing one trail, not at first.
So what was it about?
It was about the tiny little decisions that come before you even get to the trail. Like, you're working a bit late, or maybe you're just lying on the couch scrolling through Facebook on your phone. We all do it.
Guilty?
In that specific moment, making the decision to put the phone down, that's the critical decision.
Okay.
Then the next decision, put on your hiking clothes. Then walk out the door. Drive to the trailhead. And then take one single step onto the trail. Then another. Then another.
I see. It's the sequence of micro decisions.
Precisely. He says very powerfully, if you don't make the right decision when you're sitting on that couch, then no decision you make at the top of the mountain even matters, because you never get there.
That really hits home. It's those initial small choices that enable everything else.
And the result. By the end of that year, he'd hiked all 33 trails. He'd lost the 25 pounds without specifically focusing on weight loss.
Wow.
And he even completed something called the Pier to Peak Half Marathon, which is apparently one of the toughest in the U.S.
Yeah.
All from those tiny decisions compounded.
Amazing. And he did something similar with reading too, right?
Yeah, in 2009, set a goal. Read 50 books that year.
Big reading goal.
But again, same logic. It wasn't really about the 50 books. It wasn't even about finishing one book.
It was about the first decision.
It was about the decision in any given moment to put down the phone or turn off the TV and just pick up a book and read one word.
One word. That's breaking it down to the absolute minimum.
That's the marginal approach. Make the barrier to starting absurdly low.
Okay, this brings us to probably the most visually striking example, the yarn bombing.
Right. This is wild. So 2012, he sets himself 24 New Year's resolutions.
24. That's ambitious in itself.
Totally. Included learning 12 new skills. Things like unicycling, parkour, slacklining.
Okay, adventurous stuff.
Jumping stilts, drumming. Then his wife jokingly suggests knitting.
Knitting doesn't quite fit the extreme sports vibe.
Not really. And he admits he wasn't passionate about it at all. But then he's sitting under this huge, 40-foot eucalyptus tree and has this aha moment. He just thinks, that tree would look really cool if it was covered in yarn.
Ah, okay, random thought.
Which led him to discover this thing called yarn bombing. Basically, like graffiti knitting, covering public objects in colorful yarn.
I've seen pictures of that. It's pretty cool.
So he finds out International Yarn Bombing Day is only 82 days away. And he decides, okay, I'm doing this.
82 days to cover a giant tree. How?
One stitch at a time. That was his commitment. He just started knitting constantly wherever he was.
Like literally anywhere.
Literally. In board meetings, on the trading floor at his hedge fund, on airplanes, even in the hospital, apparently. Just knitting one stitch after another.
That takes discipline. And maybe some strange looks.
I imagine so. But he did it. Created his first yarn bomb for that tree. And he said the public reaction just blew him away. People loved it.
That must have been motivating.
Totally. So he went bigger. More ambitious projects. Like, he organized this massive effort to wrap 18 huge boulders out in the Los Padres National Forest.
I had to get enough yarn for that.
He put out a call, got contributions from 388 people across 36 different countries.
Wow, a global yarn bombing effort.
Yeah. He even wrapped the exterior of a children's hospital at one point, just these huge, colorful installations.
Incredible. But wasn't he knitting this whole time, the thing he didn't even like?
Well, eventually he stopped knitting. He confessed, I never actually enjoyed knitting itself.
Huh. So what then?
He started crocheting instead and began making just standard, 7-inch granny squares, the classic crochet pattern.
Okay, pretty standard craft project.
But then that same curiosity kicked in. He thought, okay, 7 inches. Why stop at 7 inches?
Uh-oh. Where is this going?
He gets curious, goes to the Guinness World Records website, sees if there's a record for, the biggest granny square.
And was there?
Nope. No category existed, so he applied to create one.
And Guinness said.
Rejected. Just flat out said no.
Ouch.
So he appealed. Got rejected again.
That's persistent.
But he appealed again, and maybe they were just impressed by his sheer tenacity, or maybe intrigued. But Guinness finally said, okay, fine. If you can make one that is 10 meters by 10 meters...
At 10 meters, that's huge, 33 feet.
Massive. They said if he could make one that big, they'd create a brand new world record category for him.
Wow. So did he do it?
For the next 2 years, 7 months and 17 days, he worked on it.
2.5 years.
Yep. One single crochet stitch at a time. Just relentlessly adding to it.
Yeah.
Ended up being over 500,000 stitches. Used more than 30 miles of yarn.
30 miles of yarn. That's unbelievable.
But he finished it and became the official Guinness World Record holder for the largest crocheted granny square ever made.
That is just an epic story of marginal gains, building something monumental, literally one stitch at a time.
Exactly.
So Stephen Duneier lists all these things he's done, right? The academic turnaround, the high-flying career, learning German, the fitness goals, the world record. He's been featured in magazines. People admire his art.
Yeah, objectively huge achievements.
But he is absolutely adamant, he insists.
Yeah.
He's still that C student deep down, still the kid who can't really focus for more than 5 or 10 minutes straight.
He claims he possesses no special gift, no unique talent, no hidden skill that made any of this possible.
So his whole method, the secret sauce, if you will.
It's simply taking these really big, ambitious, maybe overwhelming projects.
Things that seem impossible at first glance.
Yeah. And just breaking them down into their absolute simplest form, the smallest possible step.
The first stitch, the first word, the first step out the door.
Exactly. And then just focusing on making those tiny marginal improvements in your process along the way, consistently making the small decisions that improve your odds of eventually getting there.
So this whole deep dive, it really shows that maybe monumental success isn't about waiting for inspiration or needing some huge leap,
Seems not. It looks like it's much more about a series of tiny, deliberate, consistent decisions, compounded over time.
which really makes you think. What big ambitious dream have you been holding on to? Something you've maybe put off or told yourself is just too big, too far to reach?
Yeah, it definitely poses a question for all of us based on this. What's one marginal adjustment? Maybe just one tiny change to your daily routine or decision-making process that you could make starting today even.
Something small that could just begin to nudge the probability, even slightly, in your favor.
Exactly. What could that first tiny step be for you? Something to really think about as you go about your day.